as you've assumed the role of head coach, you were the assistant coach for a number of years with Steve Conwalchuk. Um, how have you looked at the individual player development side? Because I mean, I think it goes without saying it's a development league. Like every coach in major junior hockey wants to develop players to the best of their abilities. But in your case, I mean, you're also dealing with NHL teams who have their prospects there, and then I'm sure they're counting on you to get their those players as prepared as possible. What does that look like on a individual case by case basis?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you have to create the environment. You have to create the environment first, um, where it's comfortable for players to be. They can be themselves. They're treated fairly. The older players are nurturing. Where they feel comfortable being there and developing. Our guys are at the rink all day, every day because we've
Yeah,
created that environment. It's an environment where it's cool to do extra. It's cool to do the little things, to stay on the ice, to stay in the gym. It wasn't always the case here with our culture. It's taken some time. Um, when it first started the shifts, you would see I give one of our players, Kelty Jerry Leon, a lot of credit for this. He was a 20-year-old, and he was so nurturing to our younger guys. And he was a guy that always did extra. So all of a sudden, you had two guys in the gym doing extra. Then it was four. Then it was eight. Then it was 12. And now it's the whole team. We can't, we got to kick guys out of the rink at the end of the day. They want to be here, all day long. And that kind of baton's been passed to Tyrell Bauer and Matthew Rempe, and now to these guys this year, Lucas Siona and Luke Prokop and the leaders that we have here. We have a number of them, but I think the first thing is creating that welcoming environment where the young kids feel comfortable to develop and play their game and have that feeling that they're being cared for. That's first and foremost. And I think from there, with the individual player, you have to identify what they have to improve on, come up with a plan, and then you have to execute it. We have a great staff here. As far as technical skill development, our assistant coaches are great at that. We have, director of player development, Steven Gertzen, who's a great skill guy. Um, I think the biggest thing that we have to tackle as coaches here is the fundamental skills. How to play a one-on-one, breakout habits, how to box a guy out, fundamental things that happen every day in a game that, need to get better. Kids have been doing skill work and these type of things since they were in diapers.
yeah, no
So
kidding.
we have to, I find we have to teach the fundamental skills a lot, which takes some time. And then a big part of that is their decision making and reads. How can they apply these things, on the ice? You know, Develop some hockey sense, and I believe you can do that. What's your read on this play? What's your decision making process on this play? And it's both with and without the puck. You see guys that have great vision and great sense with the puck, but without the puck, not so much, and vice versa. So, you have to help them make help their process in their decision making and their reads. And I think that's a big focus of ours. And I'll say again, a big part of our player development happens just as much off the ice as it does on the ice. We're trying to develop the personal habits, the habits as an athlete, the culture. These things, I think these things are just as important as the on ice stuff. How are they becoming better athletes? How are they taking care of their body? Are they practicing mindfulness and visualization? Are they getting outside? We live in the Pacific Northwest. Get out and enjoy some of that. Get away from the screens. Are you a student of the game? We try to teach these things to our players. making lifelong learning a habit, contribute to the community, all these different things, that we try to teach our guys that, help them develop as hockey players. It's not just the on ice stuff. Of course, that's important, but, we spend a lot of focus on, developing the athlete and the person, and, some of the hockey stuff becomes easy from there. We have a T-Bird library here just behind me, and, we have the index cards and the whole 9 yards, and
Come on, are you serious?
yeah, the guys
Whose
sign
idea
out.
was that? That's awesome.
I don't know when it started. I just, I got Kyle Hagel was an assistant coach here, and, was a great mentor for our kids. He put this team habit, um, presentation that we give to the guys every year. He put it together, did a great job. And we were just talking about how can we help the guys become, better students of the game. First of all, kids don't read as much as they used to, but,
Yeah.
we encourage, our players to read, read about, you know, all kinds of different things, make sure these guys are reading the right books on teamwork, culture, work ethic, all these different things. So we have a variety of books that guys can sign out and, read and bring them back. So, it's been pretty useful for us, and guys take advantage of it.
So I got to ask you, Matt. Like a lot of what you've talked about here is it's really progressive. Like I think just the things like getting outside and the importance of that, and how it affects just your overall mindset, and just I think we're all in the process of learning about how mindset or performance precedes your mindset. Um, where did you sort of learn about this stuff, or become mindful of it yourself, so that you could create this type of environment? Because I think it probably goes without saying. I mean, there wasn't a library at the Kitchener Rangers facility when you were playing there. Nothing again. I mean, it's a great program, but that just didn't exist. There wasn't even a thought not too long ago.
Yeah. I just think as a staff, we're trying to find new ways to help our players. I'm a guy that, wants to keep learning. I know don't know everything, so, as a staff, we're constantly, trying to learn these things, how to be more, efficient as coaches, try to help our players, in other ways than on the ice. And then once again, I give Kyle Hagel a lot of credit. You know, um, he's such a professional guy, and he brought a lot of these habits with him, from his career as a player. And I played with Hags, and I knew firsthand, the type of guy that he was. So, he really helped initiate this mindset for our team. And I learned through my experiences. I think a big thing with coaching is you have to take care of yourself. The self-care stuff is important. Some of us are pretty obsessive about what we do. We stay up
Mildly.
late. Yeah, we stay up late. We get up early. We do too much video. We're maybe not eating right. Um, you're not taking care of your mental health. Things like that. It's important. It's important. You have to find ways to, decompress and take care of yourself. It's healthy to get outside. It's a way to relieve stress for me, and, anything you can do to set aside that time, whether it's go get a massage, go get a pedicure. I recently got into those float tanks. Um,
Those are cool, eh?
yeah, so that I find that just, set a little bit of time away for yourself. Obviously we care so much about our players, and all our time and energy goes into them, but you have to set aside some time for yourself, and practice some of these same habits we're trying to teach our guys. Put ourselves in a good headspace so we can help our players, even more. So it's something that I need to get better at, the self care, and making sure I'm taking care of myself. But, I know how hard we work as coaches, and you have to try to set aside some time to do that. And there's the player habits, but these are some of the coaching habits
Yeah.
that you need to develop. I think that's a big part of what I learned over the years. You have to develop habits, practice day habits, game day habits, um, self care habits. I think all those things are really important.
Coaches ask me all the time how they can get more accomplished during their practice. My answer: huddle. Here's why. Because the more you can teach and educate off the ice, the more progress you can make on the ice. Huddle is the leading video and data solution for ice hockey in the world. Huddle delivers simple yet powerful video review tools with desktop and mobile apps, enabling entire teams to review, study, and share video anywhere and at any time. Plus, with Huddle Assist, you can quickly get access to a full suite of game stats along with your film breakdown. So you can analyze both your team's and individual player performance, ensuring you provide objective feedback. Right now, listeners of the Glassnote podcast can get a great discount on Huddle products. To learn more, check out huddle.com/the coaches site for details on this exclusive offer. That's HUDL.com/the coaches site.